What happens when the very core of who you are starts to, well, unravel? When everything familiar shifts into something alien and your own thoughts, they don't quite feel like yours anymore.
Hmm.
We're diving deep today into a really critical moment for Michelle, a point in her story marked by a transformation that's, frankly, profound and pretty unsettling.
It really is. And for this deep dive, we're looking primarily at Chapter 13, Crossfire, obviously. Our goal here is to really unpack what goes down with Michelle in this chapter, how her whole perspective just flips, the choices she suddenly has, and, what it tells us about the power struggles on this island that clearly has you listening in pretty hooked.
Okay, so let's get right into the thick of it. Chapter 13 opens, and Michelle is in this bizarre state. She's described as hovering.
Not standing, not lying down, just
Yeah.
suspended.
Yeah, suspended in this light that gives no warmth. Below her, the crater, which we know was a huge deal for her recently, it's changed.
It's described almost biologically, isn't it? Like a pulsing blue vessel.
Exactly, with these glowing veins. And maybe the biggest thing for her, the bloodwood tree,
Yeah.
it's just gone.
Not just quiet, but absent. A complete void where this central part of her island experience used to be. And you have to think, given her connection to it we know about, that hits hard.
Oh, absolutely. That connection, feeling seen by the tree, its absence must leave her feeling incredibly vulnerable, maybe even abandoned.
Which could be precisely the opening needed for what comes next, because almost right away this voice appears.
Inside her head, right, not an external sound.
Exactly. Described as soft and vast. And it hits her with this really stark message. The island devours what it claims to protect.
Wow. And Michelle's reaction is, well, she doesn't really have one, does she? She can't argue. The words just feel small, unusable.
It completely shuts down her ability to push back internally. It shows how deep this intrusion goes. It's not a debate. It's almost like a new operating system being installed.
Which leads her to just
Yeah.
let go.
Yeah.
It feels less like a choice and more like the only possible outcome in that moment, a surrender.
A yielding? Yeah. And right after that, we see this massive internal shift. The fear, the trembling she felt before, gone.
Replaced by what? Structure? Obedience?
That's right, structure and obedience. And this cold, clear understanding reinforced by that voice that the island never loved you, it only used you.
Such a chilling reversal from feeling chosen and seen by the Bloodwood. It completely reframes her entire experience up to that point.
It really does, and it highlights the manipulative side of whatever forces are at work here. The Bloodwood, which she revered, didn't save her when she fell. That failure seems pivotal.
It creates the vacuum, maybe, for this other influence, this he, the creator figure we've heard about,
Yeah.
to step in and reshape her.
Precisely. The emptiness she felt isn't empty anymore. It's arranged, structured. Someone or something else is in control now.
And then she steps forward. There's this feeling of power, like a hum in her bones.
And the island knows, it watches her, feels her choice, and crucially, realizes it can't stop her.
The game has changed.
Completely. She's no longer just reacting to the island. She's become his weapon. She still matters, but in a fundamentally different and honestly terrifying way.
It suggests the island isn't the only power here, or maybe not the ultimate power.
Right. Her transformation seems to align her with this blue corruption that the island chronicles link to the crater, and by extension to this creator figure. It's a shift in allegiance. She's moved from the island's sphere of influence, potentially, to become an agent for this other force.
So now she's this weapon, and Chapter 13 lays out 4 potential paths for her. 4 options. Let's go
Yes.
through them.
Okay.
First, stand watch at the crater. Basically, guard the wound right until the island is silenced and some kind of door opens. Sounds like a direct order.
It positions her as a sentinel for the blue corruption source, directly serving the creator's agenda, whatever that might ultimately be, with this door.
Second option, go to Jordan, find him nearby. He's weak. And she could, what, heal him or change him?
That ambiguity is key, isn't it? Heal or change. It implies her power isn't just defensive, it can be used proactively on others. And we know she senses vulnerability before. Is this about helping him or co-opting him?
It definitely blurs the lines. Shows she's a tool, but maybe one with some disturbing capabilities. Okay, third, burn the bloodwood tree.
Ah, the retribution angle.
Seems like it. The tree failed her. Maybe it chose others over her, so destroy it. Weaken the island's ability to fight back, especially if that tree represents some kind of counterforce to the blue stuff.
It's a very personal, almost vengeful option, but also strategically significant. It cements her break from her past and her alignment with the new power, severing old ties, quite literally.
And the last option, number 4, break what you've become. Try to find a crack in this new power. Undo the transformation. Sabotage the crater from the inside.
This one is fascinating. It suggests maybe, just maybe, some part of the old Michelle is still in there, or that the transformation isn't totally irreversible. The possibility of resistance, even now.
It's a sliver of hope, maybe. Or just another layer of complexity.
Definitely complex.
Instead, she has this silent vow. No one else will vanish if he can help it, even if she has to face what's coming alone.
And that vow throws a real wrench in the works, doesn't it? If she's supposed to be this perfectly obedient weapon, where does this protective instinct come from? Is it a residue of her old self?
Or something else. Could it be part of the plan?
It's hard to say. It could create serious internal conflict. How do you serve as a weapon for a potentially destructive force while simultaneously vowing to protect people from vanishing? It suggests her path won't be straightforward.
Looking at the bigger picture, her transformation really throws the island's power dynamics into the spotlight. She's clearly aligned with the blue corruption now, the crater, the creator.
A stark contrast to her old connection with the Bloodwood, which might represent, I don't know, a different kind of power, maybe something more natural or older or just opposed to the blue.
So it's like she's switched sides in an ongoing conflict.
Seems that way. And her becoming a weapon is a major win for the blue side. Think about the implications. Chelsea saw visions of Michelle as a threat. Peter seems corrupted possibly by the same blue influence. It looks like this force is actively recruiting or creating agents.
It adds so much tension. And then you have the others at the Bloodwood tree in the same chapter, Jill, Boone, Cowan, Andrew. The tree seems to be dealing with them very differently.
Right. It claims Jill, it measures Cowan, offers Andrew something else. It's not treating them uniformly.
It implies the island's influence, or maybe just the Bloodwood's influence, is more nuanced than the sort of blunt force transformation Michelle experienced at the crater.
Exactly. Different methods, maybe different factions or aspects of the island's power at play. The Bloodwood itself might be a tool, but perhaps one with its own rules or limitations, not just a puppet of the creator.
Okay, so wrapping up Michelle's story in Crossfire, it's a massive, unsettling transformation after her fall. She comes out fundamentally changed, aligned with this creator, tasked as a weapon.
But standing in a crossroads, facing these huge choices that will impact everyone, all while carrying this mysterious vow to protect others.
Her experience really highlights the power struggle on the island, especially the rise of this blue corruption.
Absolutely. Her decisions from here on out are critical. Will she fully embrace the weapon role? Can that vow actually survive alongside her new purpose? Which path does she take? The consequences feel enormous. Chapter 13, Crossfire.
It really feels like a major intersection just opened up on the island.
It really does. You've got Jill, Boone, Cowan, and Andrew all landing at the Bloodwood tree. And it's fascinating how their individual paths kind of uniquely set them up, or maybe didn't for this specific moment.
Right, like Jill, she's being pulled by something inside, this awakening she doesn't totally grasp yet.
Mm-hmm. And then Boone, he's still so raw from Mayo vanishing, that feeling of powerlessness. Now he's just laser focused on stopping it from happening again. Fiercely protective.
And Cowan, he's been emptied out, hasn't he? No more infection, no manipulation, just him facing
Well, himself.
a real reckoning for him. And Andrew, well, Andrew sees this ancient, powerful tree and thinks,
Challenge accepted. Or maybe let's make a deal. Always pragmatic.
exactly. So that's really our focus for this deep dive, right? Getting into what happens to each of them at the Bloodwood.
Yeah, what does it tell us about them? About the island? What do these assignments mean? Or, the lack of an assignment for Jill?
It's like those moments we all face, isn't it? Big choices, unclear paths, and the feeling that whatever you decide is going to have real consequences. They're right in that pressure cooker.
So let's start with Jill. She gets there, and the description is, well, it's pretty intense. The trees part ways for her.
Yeah, revealing this huge, still tree. That stillness is key. And the glow is described as dull red, like embers or morning.
And straight away, she feels like she's missed something. Like she's too late. That the tree's already, I don't know, welcomed Michelle, taken
Yeah.
her.
And her light, her inner light, it doesn't flare up like you might expect.
Oh.
Listens, that's the word, use it, listens.
The air gets thick with memory, and she feels recognized, like the tree knows her as she steps closer. That's quite a connection.
It really is. For a moment, she feels held by it, known, even wanted. Her light pulses with the roots. It suggests there's something deep there between her and this place.
More than just being a survivor dropped onto an island.
Definitely. But then it changes, doesn't it? There's a hum, a tremor.
Yeah, the roots go still, and she gets this pressure behind her eyes, and she just
That was
knows.
the trees grieving. Grieving for Michelle. That shared sense of loss without words is really powerful stuff.
And it's out of that grief, isn't it, that the tree seems to show her options, paths.
That's right. There's the crimson sap. It promises knowledge of Michelle's experience, but it comes with a cost, a scar.
Then there's a root going north, pulsing faintly, but also angrily, leading to something the tree fears.
Mm-hmm. And then eastward, there's this echo of that explosion from before, something golden, blooming, and burning. Familiar.
And lastly, just turning back to the others, Boone, Cowan, Andrew. The tree doesn't need them, but maybe one of them needs her.
And this just throws her big internal conflict into sharp relief, you know. The island seems to want her to be this weapon.
But she wants to be a healer. We've seen that struggle building.
Exactly. And these paths the tree shows her, they feel more like reflections of those internal pressures, testing her almost.
Which feels very different from the guys.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to Boone. Stillness isn't peaceful for him. It's the calm before the storm.
So he sees the bloodwood, and it's just too still, unsettling. The pulsing bark feels like held breath. The sap looks like a wound. He's on edge.
And he's watching the others, isn't he? He sees Jill step in, sees the tree respond gently, like it remembers her.
He clocks Cowan just striding forward, determined, and Andrew sort of sizing it up, looking for the angle.
But Boone himself,
Yeah.
he hangs back. He remembers Mayo's strange calm, that light in her chest just before, well, before she vanished.
And it all comes back to that promise he made. No one else vanishes today. That's his mission here.
Absolutely. He's not looking for answers or power from this tree. He's the shield. He's trying to stop history from repeating itself. It's pure protection mode.
A guardian, yeah. Okay, Andrew. His perspective is definitely unique.
He brings that final boss energy description, which is just so Andrew, like it's a game cutscene.
Sees it as ancient, glowing, and, yeah, vaguely pissed off. There's no awe there, is there?
Not really. He's got that grin, and his goal is clear.
Yeah.
Make a deal.
He's watching the others too, but almost like assessing opponents or maybe the entity he wants to bargain with. He sees Jill's connection, Cowan's tension, Boone bracing himself.
Right, and his own interaction is so methodical. He tests the air, feels no warmth, and thinks, good. He's looking for rules, for leverage.
Not connection, not comfort, just how does this thing work?
But even he can't completely block it out. That pressure behind the eyes hits him too. A flicker of memory connects him to the staircase, the engine. Yeah.
Big moments from his past. And even Michelle's scream, right? He never met her.
Never met her. But he feels the echo of the tree's loss. It shows that even Andrew, trying to be detached, is still caught in the island's currents, its shared pain.
So he's not immune, but his final thought sums him up, doesn't it? He's not here for redemption.
Nope. He's here to win.
Yeah.
Whatever that means in this context. It's about coming out on top.
Okay, that leaves Cowan. His arrival is huge because he's fundamentally changed. He's not infected, not controlled anymore.
That leaves him kind of adrift, uncertain, emptied out.
And the tree seems to register that. It acknowledges him, but there's no warmth. It's just weighing him, assessing.
Then he feels something stir deep down, a pull. But it feels like design, not his own choice. He starts sensing these other places on the island.
Yeah, the cold lighthouse, that living engine, the pulsing cavern, corrupted spots. It's like they're calling out to him.
It feels like the island, maybe through the tree, is done whispering. Now it's assigning him a task. A single path opens up.
He sees the options. Lighthouse, engine, cavern, or refuse. But refusal doesn't seem like a real option somehow.
And he gets it, doesn't he? This isn't about loyalty or being pure anymore. It's about his strength. Can he face what the island kept hidden, what he was part of, and do it alone?
It feels like the ultimate test of whether he's truly free or just serves a different master now.
Exactly. So while Jill is navigating these internal paths, the three men, Cowan, Boone, Andrew, they feel something shift under their feet. The roots.
Right, a shared physical sensation. And that's when it happens. The bloodwood doesn't ask, it assigns.
Direct destinations. The White Tower, the lighthouse described as gleaming, too still, a place of silent planning.
The living engine groaning under the island, a source of sickness.
And the deep cavern, where the corruption is strongest, where something is still feeding, these feel like key nodes of the island's problems.
And potentially tied to the creator, right? That other power center we know is connected to the crater.
It certainly positions the Bloodwood Tree as an active force, maybe even pushing back against the creator. It's assigning tasks related to those corrupted zones.
But again, Jill's experience is so different. Hers is all about internal choices. About Michelle, about her role, her connections. No map coordinates for her.
No, and she senses that difference too. She feels the men are facing tests. They have to prove themselves to the tree.
Whereas she's already inside, like her connection operates on a different level.
Yes, her challenges seem more about navigating her own nature and relationships within the tree's influence, rather than being sent out on a specific mission.
So when you pull back and look at all four, this moment at the Bloodwood is just massive. It's a reckoning.
Definitely. Boone has to live up to his promise. Andrew is playing to win. Cowan has to confront the island's darkness and maybe his own.
Okay, so wrapping this part up, Chapter 13 really uses the Bloodwood tree to crystallize where each of these four characters are.
Yeah, it holds up a mirror. Jill gets these internal, choice-driven paths reflecting her healer weapon conflict and her connection to loss.
Boone stays the protector, focused outward. Andrew looks for the angle, the deal, the win.
And Cowan gets marching orders, pulling him directly towards the island's corrupted heartlands. Four very different interactions with the same powerful entity.
It's that moment you realize, wow, the island isn't just throwing random dangers at them anymore. It's actively directing them.
It is. Through the Bloodwood, at least. It's like they're being assigned roles in whatever endgame is playing out here. It feels orchestrated.
Yeah, you definitely get a sense of a deeper intelligence, a purpose behind the island's strangeness, crystallizing right here at this tree.
Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? These assignments from the Bloodwood, is this its way of fighting back against the creator, a kind of resistance movement using the survivors?
Or is it just another layer of control, a different kind of manipulation, serving the tree's own agenda, whatever that might be?
It leaves you questioning who or what is really pulling the strings on this island, and whether any of them, Jill, Boone, Cowan, Andrew, can ever truly choose their own path forward.
A lot to think about there. Definitely changes how you see their struggles from here on out.
Chapter 13, Crossfire.
Absolutely. It's such a critical point.
We've pulled together different perspectives. Graham's, Peter's, Mayoli's.
Yeah, seeing how their stories just collide here.
Exactly. And the idea isn't just to recap, what happened. We want to get into the why.
Why it matters, what it tells us about them, about the island itself.
Right, and what it means for you as you're trying to piece this whole puzzle together.
And Chapter 13 is where it really happens, that collision. They've been on separate tracks, mostly.
Driven by their own things.
But now, bam, they hit each other, and we see the consequences play out.
These different viewpoints are key, aren't they? Like seeing the same crash from three angles.
Precisely. Each one shows you something different, something the others miss. It deepens the whole picture.
Okay, let's kick off with Graham. He's in the tunnels, under the lighthouse. But it's not panic, is it? What's his deal here?
No, not panic. The text really pushes this idea of a relentless hunger for understanding.
So curiosity over fear.
Kind of, yeah. His intellect is just overriding everything else. He thinks Mayoli could follow him, which is interesting.
Is that genuine belief or just justifying leaving her?
Hard to say for sure, maybe a bit of both. But he admits he didn't wait. The real focus, though, is the journal.
The symbols.
Exactly, those cryptic symbols. Suddenly, they're matching markings on the tunnel walls.
Okay, so that suggests what? Like, he's found a language, a map.
Something like that. A system, maybe, like cracking a code. And then there's that vision.
Oh, yeah, when he touches a symbol. Pretty disturbing stuff.
Deeply. It triggers this memory, right? A ritual on the ship.
And it was aimed at something above.
Meant for something listening above is the phrase. And whatever it was, it apparently answered him in that moment in the tunnel.
Chilling. So the island isn't just weird geography, it's responsive.
That's how it seems to shift for him. From just a mystery to machinery.
Yeah.
Like it's an operating system he can figure out.
And even with all this danger, these weird visions, he pushes on deeper.
He does. He could turn back, try to find Mayoli, regroup. But no. His goal changes, you know? It's not about safety anymore, it's about mastery.
Mastery. That sounds ambitious. Maybe dangerously so.
Well, that's often the trap, isn't it? Wanting to control something you barely understand. It speaks to that human drive, but also the risk of hubris.
Especially there.
Right. He's choosing knowledge over connection, over safety. And that isolates him more and more.
And the island notices.
It seems like it. The text says the deeper he goes, the more it feels like the island is watching back, like he's poked something.
Okay, so for you listening, the key things with Graham here, that intellectual drive may be bordering on obsession now.
Uh-huh. And the isolation that comes with putting knowledge first, it's a dangerous path he's on.
Right. Now let's switch gears completely. Peter, his transformation is just as big, but wow, different flavor.
Oh, absolutely. Peter's gone full zealot. He thinks he carries the island's will.
A vessel of purpose. That sounds ominous.
It is. And we see it straight away when he stops Maoli. He doesn't just block her path.
No, it's brutal. He physically overpowers her.
Yeah, and he thinks he's doing it for her own good, like converting her to his cause.
This warped sense of purpose, it really shows how power or perceived power can just corrupt.
Totally. It twists everything. And the altar scene really drives that home.
Yeah, because he thinks he's the one in charge doing the transforming.
But he's got it completely backwards. The altar starts draining him.
So it's not about changing Maoli.
No. He feels strong, feels like he's in control, but that feeling shifts, right?
Yeah, it says he starts feeling hollow.
Exactly. What felt like power now feels like sacrifice, but not in a noble way. He's being emptied, systematically.
Wow. And he's thinking he's building this great movement for the island.
He's got this whole illusion going, gathering followers, forging alliances. He's completely blind to the fact that he's being used up.
So he's not the leader, he's the fuel.
Pretty much. He's become an instrument. And then he gets that invitation to act.
Right. Go after Graham, wake someone else up, find another target.
And he thinks this proves he's still important, still needed. He calls it obedience.
But really, it's just orders for a pawn.
Orders that aren't even really for him anymore, not the person he thinks he is. He's disposable.
Okay, so the big takeaways for Peter, for you listening, be careful what you think is control, right?
Definitely. And how easily the island, or whatever force is at play, can manipulate and just discard people.
It's a really tragic fall, thinking you're vital when you're just being used.
Utterly. Now, Maoli, she's caught right in the middle of this Peter situation.
Yeah, he intercepts her when she's trying to follow Graham, but her reaction is interesting.
It is. She doesn't just shrink back. She fights him with rage, not fear, it says.
So they're still fighting her, even against this empowered Peter.
Absolutely. It shows that resilience, that refusal to just be a victim, which makes what happens next even more striking.
The transformation at the altar, which, again, Peter thinks he's causing.
Right. He thinks he's making her perfect, obedient, but she rises renewed.
And the description of how it feels for her.
Yeah.
The air changing,
Yeah.
limbs heavy, cold.
Yeah, those sensory details suggest something profound is happening to her. Maybe not because of Peter's intention. It's involuntary, transformative.
And after, Peter sees obedience. But internally, she's different still, but aware.
Exactly. And then she feels that new thing, that tug or pull.
Connected to Peter, but also something else.
Yeah, it's subtle, gentle, but steady. And it seems tied to the chamber itself, the cold air, the stones, like the island's structure.
And where's it pulling her?
Towards Graham's tunnel, towards the lab, even towards the altar where others are trapped. It's like connecting the dots.
And there's a promise attached to it.
Bring them back, bind them, grow the voice into a legion. It sounds like a call to unify, to gather power, maybe with her at the center.
But crucially, these aren't orders, are they?
No, the text is clear. They're invitations, not demands.
That feels like a really important difference.
It's huge. It suggests the creator, whatever that is, works through suggestion, opportunity. Maoli sees them as doorways.
Ways to bend the world to her will.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Ways to act, to shape things. So her final moment there, the breath, the smile, waits for the world to move.
It feels like she shifted from reacting to preparing to act. on her own terms.
Potentially. She's emerged not as Peter's puppet, but maybe as a new independent power player.
So for Maoli, you listening should note that resilience, that fighting spirit,
Yeah, and how the island's transformations aren't always predictable or what someone intends.
and her potential emergence as this new force working with these invitations.
Exactly. So pulling it all together now, looking at how these three stories crash into each other in Crossfire,
Hmm.
what stands out?
The motivations are just night and day, aren't they? Graham wants knowledge. Peter wanted control, but he's lost it.
And Maoli now seems poised to use this newfound something,
Yeah.
power, agency.
Yeah. And the lighthouse is ground zero for all this convergence and divergence.
It's the nexus point and the site of these major transformations for Peter and Maoli.
And looming over it all is this creator pulling strings from behind the curtain.
Manipulating, using people for its own ends, whatever those are, still very enigmatic.
The theme of isolation, too. It hits all three, but differently.
Right. Graham's off on his own quest. Peter's isolated by his delusion. And Maoli, well, her new state might set her apart, even if it connects her in other ways.
It really changes what winning might even mean here. Escape seems less and less the point.
Yeah, it's shifted more towards survival, influence, finding your place in this weird ecosystem.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm.
If you were in their shoes facing that, what choices would you make?
Yeah, given their drives, their situations, that's a tough call. What path looks appealing or even survivable?
So just to wrap the key threads, Crossfire shows Graham diving deeper into obsession,
Peter getting hollowed out by his own ambition.
and Maoli getting this unexpected, maybe game-changing empowerment.
And through it all, we see the island's manipulative touch, the weight of choices, and how quickly power can shift.
Which leaves us with a big question to chew on, doesn't it?
It does. What does that tell us about the island's endgame?
Where do their paths go from here? What happens next?
Yeah, what does the setup lead to? Lots to ponder.
Definitely. And remember, there are other characters, other stories playing out too. Always more to consider.
Always. We're looking at Chapter 13, Crossfire, weaving together these different character perspectives, Jordan, Jim, Claudia, Mayo, right at this critical moment.
Right. The golden pool, the waterfall,
Oh,
that whole scene.
yeah.
But the power, it's fading. So our mission today really is to unpack what's going down. You know, what each character is feeling, thinking.
And the massive choices they suddenly have to make together. It's intense.
It really is. So before we jump right into Chapter 13, let's quickly remind ourselves how everyone got here. Just a quick recap from their own stories leading up to this. Jordan first.
Jordan, yeah. Washed up on the beach, totally lost, then has that, terrifying encounter with Claudia at the waterfall.
Right, he was scared stiff. And later, Mayo sees him during that big fight there, too. So he's kind of been swept up in things he doesn't understand.
Definitely defined by fear and confusion initially. He's sort of on the outside looking in, or maybe dragged in is better.
Okay, then Jim.
And the big thing for Jim is coming out of the golden pool. The sources suggest he's, well, changed. More powerful, maybe?
Yeah, that's the impression. Like he went from searching to suddenly having some kind of, I don't know, enhanced ability. The pool definitely did something.
It's a potential shift, right? From seeker to maybe a protector or something more active.
And Claudia, she's
Yeah.
been around the waterfall longer. Tried to connect with Jordan earlier, remember, but he was too spooked.
Right, that failed attempt. And then her reunion with Mayo was huge, very emotional.
And she used the pool's power, what was left of it then, to heal Mayo. Shows that protective side.
Absolutely. She seems deeply connected to the others, very willing to use her own resources, let's say, to help them. Even trying with Jordan shows that compassion.
Okay, and finally Mayo. Marking the shipwreck, those altered states she goes through. Her connection with Boone.
Such a complex journey for her. Finding Claudia again seems key, like an anchor. But she's constantly fighting the island's influence, right?
Totally. And she was in the pool, too, with Claudia and Jim, battling for her own self, really.
Resilience is her defining trait, I think, pushing back against whatever the island is doing to her.
Okay, great context. So let's dive into Crossfire itself. What's the scene? Chapter opens, Jim's just emerged from the pool. What happens?
Yeah, so Jim steps out, and the pool's light is visibly weaker. And Claudia and Mayo, they just turn to him. The source says it's silent, but you feel that question hanging there like, okay, now what?
That unspoken pressure. The resource they relied on is dwindling fast.
Exactly. And Jim, his focus immediately snaps to Jordan. Maybe that new power is fueling a sense of responsibility.
Makes sense. And Claudia sees Jordan too, right?
Yeah.
How does she react?
Oh, it's instant. She sees this figure slumped in the dirt, and the description is just harsh. Barely human, blue corruption coiling around him, fungal threads.
Ugh, chilling.
Yeah. And for her, it connects right back to those earlier failed attempts at the waterfall. It's like she's thinking, not again. I can't just stand by again. Her reaction is pure instinct. Gotta help him.
Driven by that past inaction, or the fear of it repeating, that protectiveness again.
Definitely. It feels like a core part of her. She can't just watch someone suffer if he thinks she might be able to intervene.
And then Mayo joins them.
Yeah.
How does she approach it?
Mayo arrives beside Jordan, almost without a word, and her assessment is immediate, almost clinical. She feels for his heartbeat, finds it incredibly faint under all that blue stuff.
The fungus, the corruption.
Right. And then she starts drawing on her own light, the golden energy that's fading within her too. It's like she's remembering her own fight against that coldness the island pushes, that feeling of being stilled.
And she's determined not to let it happen to him. Or maybe not to herself again.
Both, maybe. She gets it. She knows what that cold feels like. So expending her own light, even when she's low, it shows this deep empathy, this connection, forged through shared struggle. It's powerful.
So the rescue attempt begins. Talk us through that. It sounds incredibly tense.
It is. Claudia touches Jordan first, tries to channel her light, but realizes almost immediately it's not enough, not nearly enough. And that's when she cries out, Ayudam!
Help me. Just raw desperation.
Totally raw. And that vulnerability, maybe, it triggers something in Jordan. Just a faint twitch, the text says, like a flicker of life responding to her plea.
Wow. So even in that state, something's still there.
Seems so. And then Mayo and Jim jump in, adding their light to Claudia's, and together their combined golden energy starts pushing back the blue rot.
And there's that hissing sound described as the light hits the corruption.
Yeah, like a physical battle. The blue stuff fights back. They have to push harder. Mayo remembers the cold again, and it just fuels her determination.
That memory is a powerful motivator for her.
Absolutely. And this collective effort, it's kind of the point. Individually, maybe they couldn't do it, but together, pooling their compassion, their power, their resistance.
They manage it.
They do. The blue corruption finally breaks like snapping, the text says. Brittle. And Jordan, he comes back. He's conscious.
Huge relief.
Ah.
But
Oh.
there's always a but on this island, isn't there? What's the cost?
Oh, yeah. Immediate cost. Claudia is just
Mhm.
spent, drained. Mayo feels the word used as empty, like scraped clean inside. And Jim feels it too, knows their collective power is way down.
The pool behind them.
Fading fast. A very clear visual cue that whatever they tap into is almost gone. Every action has a price.
Rescue successful, but resources critically low. And then things get worse.
Things get immediately worse. Just as they're catching their breath, dozens of these corrupted figures start emerging from the trees.
Dozens. Oh, man.
Yeah. Staggering, shambling, the description says. Glowing with those creepy blue veins. Some barely look human anymore. It's a nightmare.
So they've gone from a focused rescue to being potentially overwhelmed.
Completely. The scale of the threat just multiplied massively. This isn't about saving one person now. It's about sheer survival against a horde.
And they're exhausted.
Yeah.
The text points that out.
Explicitly. They know healing isn't the answer here. Not against this many. You get the sense of them physically, like, tightening their grip on what little strength they have left and on each other.
Relying on each other again. That connection.
It's all they have left, really. Moving from individual fights to this collective defense, that grip is symbolic, I think.
Which leads right into the big cliffhanger.
Ah.
These things start charging, and they have to choose. Now, what are the options laid out?
4 possibilities, all pretty grim.
Right.
1, go full offense, unleash all their remaining golden power as a weapon.
Risky. Might take some out, but leave them totally exposed.
Exactly. 2, form a defensive shield with the light. Protect themselves, but maybe just delay the inevitable if the shield can't hold.
Option 3.
Try to. Probe the corrupted. Understand them somehow. Find a weakness, maybe. But that means getting close, engaging with this hostile force directly. Huge risk.
Very dangerous. And the last one.
4, retreat. Run into the jungle, try to conserve their strength, regroup, but that means giving up ground, abandoning the pool area.
And potentially getting separated or cornered later.
Yeah.
Wow. No easy answers.
None at all. Each one is a massive gamble. Attack, defend, understand, or flee, and they have seconds to decide while completely drained.
The stakes are just brutal. Depleted, surrounded, and facing an unknown enemy with the potentially devastating consequences no matter what they pick.
It's the island distilled, isn't it? Constant pressure, impossible choices, limited resources, a real crucible.
So, wrapping this up, Jordan's saved but fragile. The pool's power is almost gone. And now this horde is descending.
Yeah, this deep dive into Crossfire really hammered home how intertwined they all are. Past mistakes, past rescues, they all feed into this moment. And their connection, their willingness to act together, it's their only real asset against, well, against everything.
It forces them, and us reading it, to think about those impossible choices when just staying alive is on the line.
Definitely. The weight of the past, the power of connection, the agony of command, almost.
Which leaves us, and you the listener, with that final thought. Their lights fading, the island's throwing everything it has at them. Can they possibly survive this? We're zeroing in on chapter 13.
And the focus is really tight this time. Brian, Mike, and, well, the end of the line for Ian in this chapter.
Exactly. We're looking at their perspectives, the choices they face right here in chapter 13, and Ian's definitive departure.
It's high stakes on this island, always. We see Brian and Mike hitting these critical decision points.
While Ian's situation just sort of resolves itself, maybe not in the way anyone hoped, it really is a pressure point.
It is.
So the big question guiding us today, for you listening, is how do people actually react when they're pushed right to the edge? Facing these huge, possibly life-altering choices, especially when, alliances are crumbling and dangers everywhere.
Where do they turn? What drives them?
Let's start with Brian. Chapter 13 opens with him.
Okay, so Brian, he's literally just walking away from the bunker. And what's immediately striking is he seems completely unbothered that Ian and Mike just escaped, like really unfazed.
Is that genuine indifference, do you think? Or maybe he's just got bigger fish to fry?
That's the question, isn't it? His focus is already gone, turned west. His creature is leading him, pulling him towards this cave that's glowing blue.
Ah, the blue glow.
Yeah.
And the cave itself. The description is pretty potent.
Oh, yeah. Thick air, smells like rot and memory. That's such a strange detail. And this fungus all over the walls, pulsing.
Pulsing fungus, right. It paints this picture of decay, but also something ancient and maybe aware. And then there are those other creatures.
The smaller ones, yeah. Described as failed versions of Brian's own creature, which kind of suggests this whole transformation thing isn't random.
Right, like the island's been trying this before, iterating almost.
Exactly. And then Brian's creature just goes for it, starts licking, devouring this fungus, wailing. It's undergoing this massive, dangerous change right in front of him.
And Brian's just watching this unfold, trying to figure out, is this evolution? Or is it just madness?
And crucially, he feels his own authority slipping, his control over the creature, the leadership role he had. It's eroding. That power dynamic is shifting big time.
It's a huge shift. And then, just to ramp up the weirdness, this voice appears.
Yeah, not like a person talking, but a presence, a voice from the cave asking him straight up, what will you do?
Which leads directly to the options laid out in Brian's story. He's got some heavy choices.
Seriously heavy. Option 1, try and help the beast, get it back under control. Option 2, destroy it before it completely loses it or turns on him.
Drastic. What else?
Option 3, he could consume the fungus himself, try to match its power, maybe?
Whoa, okay. That's intense.
Or option 4, just leave it all. Live the creature, the fungus, everything, and follow that voice deeper into the island, towards whatever's at the hidden center.
Each path is just completely transformative, potentially. No going back.
Pretty much. And Brian gets it. He realizes in that moment he's not leading anymore. He's being led, or maybe even tested. And the island is watching him.
That feeling creeps in a lot, doesn't it? The island as this aware entity puts everything in a different light.
It really does. Okay, so while Brian's dealing with cosmic fungus and voices, let's pivot to Mike.
Right. Mike's situation in chapter 13, very different vibe. He's down in the lab.
Yeah, beneath the bunker. Ian's just gone through the vent. Mike helped him, remember. Now Mike's alone down there.
And what's he seeing in this lab? It sounds like a place he wouldn't want to hang out.
Definitely not. He's seeing fogged up glass tubes with these hybrid beasts inside, schematics like blueprints of transformations that failed.
Failed transformations. Okay. Echoes of what Brian's seeing with the smaller creatures.
Exactly. And he finds notes. Notes talking about the island being divided somehow. Crater versus tree, blue versus red, control versus connection. These big opposing systems.
So the island isn't just one thing. It's got internal conflicts, maybe. Competing forces.
Seems like it. And this leads Mike to a pretty huge conclusion, a really unsettling one.
It is.
He realizes they aren't just survivors trying to get off the island. They're all part of some failed experiment. Everyone, including Brian.
Wow. Okay, that changes everything for him, surely.
Absolutely. Survival is still key, obviously, but now it's also about figuring out what this experiment is. What's the point of it all?
And there's that terminal screen, too, right?
Yeah.
Another grim discovery.
Yeah. Hundreds of dead faces displayed on a screen, just hammering home the point that the island doesn't save people. It rewrites them, or tries to, often fatally.
Man. So the island's this powerful, almost indifferent force.
Seems that way. And then Mike interacts with the system, finds this file. Third cycle prototype echoes.
And just accessing that file triggers something.
Big time. The lab starts trembling. The tubes hum. Something stirs down there. It's like he poked a sleeping. Well, something. It shows how interconnected and maybe reactive the island's tech or whatever it is really is.
So Mike's got his own set of crossroads, just like Brian. What are his options down there in the lab?
Well, he could follow Ian, go into the vent, see where that leads, maybe find safety, maybe answers. Or he could investigate this node on a map he found, marked with a spiral, but it's almost erased. Suggests it's important, maybe dangerous, maybe forgotten.
Intriguing. And the last option.
Stay put. Stay in the lab despite the trembling and humming and try to figure out its secrets, uncover what got stirred up, risk it all for knowledge.
And that seems to be where his head's at now, right?
Yeah.
The focus shifts.
Totally. It's less about just moment-to-moment survival, though that's still there, obviously. But now he's driven by this need to know, to uncover a truth that feels maybe worth dying for.
From self-preservation to a quest for understanding.
Oh.
Okay, now Ian, his story in Chapter 13 is really defined by, well, by him not being there anymore.
Pretty much. We need to rewind just a tiny bit to the end of Chapter 12 in Mike's story. Mike helps Ian get into the bunker, away from Brian. Then Ian locks the door from the inside.
Right, leaving Brian outside. A clear choice by Ian.
A very clear choice. Then, Chapter 13 starts, Mike's in the lab beneath, and Ian just vanishes.
Silently. Into a vent.
Exactly! Mike calls his name, gets nothing back, just gone. It's abrupt. It states pretty clearly that Ian was ultimately absorbed in the pit.
Absorbed in the pit. Okay. That sounds incredibly final and confirms the vent wasn't an escape route. Not really.
Not in the long run, no. So, Chapter 13 is definitively the last we hear of Ian in these specific source documents. His journey, as far as we can track it here, ends.
And it's quite the contrast, isn't it? Mike makes this effort to help him escape the immediate danger from Brian.
Only for Ian to disappear silently moments later, heading towards, well, absorption. It just highlights the island's unpredictability. And its brutality, frankly.
So putting it all together, Brian's facing these huge, potentially monstrous transformations. Mike's digging into the island's core secrets. And Ian is gone. Absorbed.
Yeah, these three threads in Chapter 13 really show different facets of interacting with the island's power. Transformation, investigation, and elimination, maybe.
And these individual moments, they clearly connect to the bigger picture ideas we see about choice, consequence.
Absolutely. You see the themes play out in real time. Choice. Mike's options, Brian's options, consequence. Ian's fate, the potential outcomes for Brian. And the island's influence is just everywhere. Pressing down on all of them, Ian's end really drives home the stakes. What does that signal about the island's nature? It feels less like a place and more like a system.
A system with rules, maybe? And consequences for breaking them, or maybe just for existing within them.
It definitely feels like these individual stories are feeding into a much larger, way more complex narrative about what it means to survive or not on this island.
Yeah.
What transformation really entails.
And the forces at play are just enigmatic. Deeply strange.
For sure. And as always, we encourage you, go back to the sources yourself. Read Chapter 13 again. You might spot nuances or connections we didn't even touch on.
There's always more there.
Yeah.
So the final thought we want to leave you with is this. Considering Brian, Mike, and Ian in this chapter, how much is truly down to their individual choices? Or are they, maybe without realizing it, just pieces moving on a board, playing out roles in a game designed by the island itself? Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Zeroing in on one specific thread, Chelsea's journey within Chapter 13, Crossfire.
Right. Specifically, what happens after she takes that plunge into the golden pool and ends up in the twisted branch structure.
Exactly. We want to unpack her experience there, what choices uh, seem to be laid out for her, and what it all might mean going forward. So she dives in.
Yeah.
What's that like initially?
Well, the first thing that jumps out is the feeling. It's described as this warmth, like being cradled.
Which is a huge contrast, right? Considering what happened with the engine before.
A massive contrast. You know, that engine encounter sounded almost fatal, really aggressive. This golden pool experience feels nurturing, almost like it's intentionally reshaping her, perhaps.
Reshaping, okay. And then she's guided to the twisted branch structure.
Yes, by these roots. But the text notes they're depleted. Much of their energy is gone.
So sending her there was like a final act.
It feels that way, like the last push from whatever power resided in the Bloodwood, specifically for her, a real turning point in that connection, it seems.
Okay, so she arrives. The power that brought her is spent,
Mm.
but she's in the structure.
Mm-hmm.
What's the vibe inside? Because we've heard other accounts.
Yeah, exactly. Like in Mike's story, it sounded pretty unsettling, kind of creepy.
For Chelsea.
For Chelsea,
Mhm.
it's different. There's this strong sense of belonging, like she's meant to be there.
Meant to be there. How so?
The description's very sensory. The walls seem to breathe. The floor pulses. The light even responds to her. It's like the place is alive and connecting with her specifically.
Wow, okay, so a very personal, resonant feeling for her.
Uh-huh.
But then there are these objects.
Mm-hmm. The remnants.
Yeah, a kid sneaker, a wristband, some blurry photo.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound quite so welcoming. What are those about?
It casts a pretty dark shadow on that initial feeling of safety.
Definitely raises questions about the structure's true purpose.
Yeah.
So she's in this place feeling like she belongs, and then the roots start moving again.
Yes, exactly. The roots may be drawing on the structure's energy now. They begin to weave and shake themselves
In what?
into figures, specific figures. The island or whatever force is acting here seems to be showing her targets.
Targets. Okay, who does she see?
3 distinct figures form. First, there's a cloaked person in a sort of fungal-lit cave, hand on a beast, identified as Brian.
And the description.
He's labeled as unstable and wrong, just fundamentally off, it sounds like.
Okay, who's next?
Then Peter appears. He's in the lighthouse, reaching for Maoli, and
Yeah.
he's tagged as a disciple of corruption. Sick.
A disciple of corruption, aligning with that whole blue corruption theme we've seen elsewhere. And the third.
The third is Michelle.
That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, the text explicitly mentions it causes Chelsea emotional pain to see her like this. Michelle is presented as now standing against what Chelsea represents, an adversary.
So Brian, Peter, Michelle, unstable, corrupt, adversarial. The island is clearly pointing her in a direction, giving her a mission almost.
It certainly seems that way. The source calls it a directive and targeting. She's being aimed at these specific individuals.
And given that she came from the Golden Pool, this suggests she's now aligned with that golden resistance force, fighting against the blue.
That seems to be the implication, yes. But to figure out what she might do next, it's useful to look at Michelle's own situation from earlier in this same chapter.
Right, after Michelle's transformation, what were her options? Because that might give us clues about Chelsea's potential path now.
Exactly. Michelle was given choices like defend the crater, make sure the door opens, or seek out Jordan and try to sway his fate.
Okay, so influencing key locations or people. What else?
There was also the option to destroy the Bloodwood tree, the very thing that changed her but maybe failed her in some way.
Wow, turn against her source of power.
Or find a way to fracture the structure she was in the engine, in her case from the inside. So, defend, influence, destroy, or subvert.
Those are some heavy options. And Chelsea might be facing a similar menu of choices now, presented by this structure.
It seems very likely. She's also been remade, just like Michelle was, though through a different process. The parallels are strong.
What do you make of that?
That's the really fascinating part, I think. She's been changed, yes. She still has this golden light linking her to that resistance, but not being just a vessel that implies agency.
Like she's not just a puppet.
Maybe. Maybe she has more capacity to interpret these directives, or even choose how she acts on them, or perhaps even resist them to some degree. She's not just being controlled, she's been transformed into something that might have its own will, its own perspective, even within this new alignment.
So the island remade her, gave her power, pointed her at targets, but maybe didn't get complete control.
That seems possible. The conflict between the blue and golden forces isn't just external anymore. It seems like it's playing out within Chelsea now, tangled up with her own history and whatever this transformation truly means. She carries the golden light, but also the weight of this new directive.
Okay, let's try and sum this up. Chelsea survives the engine, gets renewed or remade by the Golden Pool, arrives in the Twisted Branch structure, which feels like home, but is also this ominous vault of execution orders.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, she's shown Brian, Peter, and crucially, Michelle as targets, suggesting a mission is coming.
Right. And looking at Michelle's post-transformation choices gives us a framework for what Chelsea's options might involve big, impactful actions related to the island's core conflicts.
But she's not just a vessel anymore. She's something new,
Yeah.
potentially with more agency.
Precisely. And that leaves us with some huge questions hanging in the air directly from this chapter.
Like, what's she going to do? Which path will she take, given these targets and the potential missions?
And how much will her past, especially with Michelle, affect those choices now that Michelle is framed as the enemy?
Yeah, that's a big one. And what does it even mean for her and everyone else that she's now operating from inside this vault of execution orders? What does that signify for her role?
These are the core questions, aren't they? Her transformation, her arrival here, it's clearly a massive shift, not just for her story, but potentially for the whole dynamic on the island.
Her choices are going to ripple outwards, no doubt.
Right.
It really makes you think, about what it means to be fundamentally changed by a place like this and how you navigate when your own past clashes with a future someone else seems to be assigning to you.
Absolutely. It's a complex situation, and her path from here is definitely one to watch.